Today we're going to cover the last component of our angle relationships unit. We're still using the same objective, but we're doing the last part today. So your objective is to use informal arguments to establish facts about the angle criterion for similarity of triangles. So before we move on, make sure that you have your heading on your paper, today's date as the due date, and you're going to need 7 stamps today to get your 100. We're going to be doing some notes together, and then you'll do the problems on the back on your own. So let's get zoomed in here a bit. Okay, in similar triangles, we need to know that corresponding angles are always congruent. And you probably remember this at least a little bit from before when we were solving proportions a lot. Anytime we have similar figures, corresponding sides are proportional, but corresponding angles are congruent. And so we had to memorize that. So anytime you're given one angle, you know that in the similar triangle, that same angle is going to be the same thing. So let's look at an example. Here, this first example really is only here to show us some symbols. You'll see that A and D both have one little arc. B and E both have 2 arcs. And then C and F both have 3 arcs. So what that's telling us is that A is congruent to D, B is congruent to E, and C is congruent to F. So if they had told us what A was, D would be the same thing. If they had told us what F was, C would be the same thing. So let's look over at this, at the one below it here. We're going to come back to the tree. So these 2 triangles are actually the same triangle, but you'll notice that they're turned different directions. So with this one, I wanted you to notice that the shapes do not have to be facing the same way. And if they're not, we have to be very careful to figure out what's what. So if this is 90 degrees, and let's just say that this is 30 degrees, and this is 60 degrees. Okay, so I'm just making those up. Then we know that the corresponding angles, P and P prime, have to be congruent, so P prime would be 90 degrees. R prime would be 30 degrees. And Q prime would be 60 degrees. Now if we look down at the triangles labeled R and S, again, they've given us the little symbols to show us which angles are congruent to each other. But I'm just going to make up some numbers here. We're going to say 55 degrees for this one. And 40 degrees for this one. And that's all we know. Now, could we figure out anything else? Well, let's look and see. We could actually figure out all 4 of the other ones just by using these 2 pieces of information. So let's go ahead and plug in. We know that this angle and this angle have to be the same. And we know that this angle and this angle are the same. So that part was pretty easy. But these two angles are the same and we don't know what they are. Well, we remember from part 2 that triangles have to add up to 180 degrees. So if I have 180 degrees, and I subtract 40 degrees, then I subtract 55 degrees, I have 85 degrees left over, which means that this is 85 degrees, and this is also 85 degrees. If we plug it back in, 85 plus 40 plus 55 is 180. So we are good to go there. Let's jump over to this one. Oh well. Did I make you dizzy there? Okay. So, on this one, we have to figure out which angles go together. The ones that are touching are going to go together, so those two go together. Our right angles are, of course, corresponding, and then the other angles are going to go together as well. Now, if we didn't know that, if it were too hard to figure it out, we'd have the right angles, those would be easy. But the angle across from the short side and the angle across from the short side would have to go together. And the angle across from the longer side and the angle across from the longer side. So you may not always have that information. Like in this case, we don't know because we don't know what a U is. But if you have that, use it. If they've given you the lengths of all the sides. So I'm going to tell you, I'm only going to give you one piece of information. Angle K is 62 degrees. And that's all I'm going to tell you. So I'd like for you to go ahead and try to figure out the other 3 angles that you're missing. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds. Okay, so let's look at this. If you got stuck, that's okay. We're going to figure it out right now. If you got it, let's check your work. So 62 degrees means that this angle is also 62 degrees. I know that these two are 90 because they've put that right angle symbol there. And now I just need to figure out this angle. So if I know that I have 90 degrees and 62 degrees, that means I have 180 altogether, minus 90 degrees gives me 90, and then I'm subtracting the 62 degrees that I gave you, and we have 28 degrees left over. So this is 28 degrees, and this is 28 degrees. If we add those up, 90 plus 62 plus 28, that's 180. I want to look at this one that we skipped really quickly. If you're given the shape that looks like this, which you will be on number 7 on your assignment, this still is 2 triangles, even though it just looks like one triangle with a line down the middle. So what we have to remember is that this angle and this angle go together. This angle and this angle go together. And then this angle, angle A, is actually part of both triangles. So if you look, you'll see that here is our small triangle, and here is the big triangle. So we really do have two triangles there. So A is just in the exact same spot on both. And that's one good way to prove that corresponding angles are the same. They have to be congruent because it's the same angle there. So I'm going to leave you to do numbers 1 through 7 on your own. On each of these, I've basically asked you to come up with the measurement of each angle that is not given to you. So some angles are given to you, some are not, and you're going to be finding each one that is not given to you. I do want you to make sure that you have your degree sign. So if I have 55 degrees, don't just put 55, make sure that you put that degree sign at the top. Please bring me your paper in between, at least for the first couple, so that I can double check that you're on the right track since we haven't done any of these full questions together. And then once you've gotten the first couple right, if you want to continue and finish the rest before you bring it to me, that's fine.